Greetings, everyone. My name is Charles Kovaci, not safe for work presidential candidate campaigning for more direct democracy. And because simply saying, hey, I think we should have more direct democracy over and over and over again because it kind of gets dull and boring and repetitive, I make videos talking about current events and other things that interest me as a way to garner attention to this idea in this campaign. And today, once again, because I'm wearing my glasses, I am going to do a video reading another piece of legislation. And this one is what is it called? The Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act of 2019. This is in response to the current protests that are going on in Hong Kong. I still wonder why other such protests around the world, actually I'm not wondering why, but I'm wondering why other such protests around the world against authoritarian rule are not being supported by our Congress. But let's begin. So this is an act to amend the Hong Kong Policy Act of 1992 and for other purposes. The short title, this act may be cited as the Hong Kong Human Rights Act and Democracy Act of 2019. It has a table of contents. Isn't that special? We will not read that. It has definitions, appropriate congressional committees. The term appropriate congressional committees means Alpha, the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate; Bravo, Committee on Armed Services of the Senate; Charlie, the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs of the Senate; Delta, the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs of the Senate; Echo, the Committee on the Judiciary of the Senate; Foxtrot, the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives; Gulf, the Committee on Armed Services of the House of Representatives; Hotel, the Committee on Financial Services of the House of Representatives; India, the Committee on Homeland Security of the House of Representatives; and Juliet, the Committee on the Judiciary of the House of Representatives. Social credit system. The term social credit system means a system proposed by the government of the People's Republic of China and scheduled for implementation by 2020, which would Alpha use existing financial credit systems, public records, online activity, and other tools of surveillance to aggregate data on every Chinese citizen and business, and Bravo use such data to monitor, shape, and rate certain financial, social, and religious or political behaviors. Well, I don't know about you, but it seems like half of this is going on already here. 3. United States person. The term United States person means Alpha, United States citizen; Bravo, a lawfully admitted permanent resident of the United States; or Charlie, an entity organized under the laws of 1. the United States, or 2. any jurisdiction within the United States, including a foreign branch of such entity. Section 3. The Statement of Policy. It is the policy of the United States, 1. to reaffirm the principles and objectives set forth in the United States Hong Kong Policy Act of 1992, Public Law 102, TAC 383, namely that Alpha, the United States has a strong interest, quote, has a strong interest in the continued vitality, prosperity, and stability of Hong Kong, end quote. Bravo, quote, support for democratization is a fundamental principle of the United States foreign policy, end quote. How many dictators have we installed? Oh yeah, that's right, we don't pay attention to that. And therefore, quote, naturally applies to United States policy towards Hong Kong, end quote. Charlie, quote, the human rights of the people of Hong Kong are of great importance to the United States and are directly relevant to the United States' interest in Hong Kong and serve as a basis for Hong Kong's continued economic prosperity, end quote. And Delta, Hong Kong must remain sufficiently autonomous from the People's Republic of China to, quote, justify treatment under a particular law of the United States or any provision thereof different from that accorded to the People's Republic of China, end quote. 2. To support the high degree of autonomy and fundamental rights and freedoms of the people of Hong Kong as enumerated by Alpha, the Joint Declaration of the Government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and the Government of the People's Republic of China and the question of Hong Kong, done at Beijing, December 19, 1984, referred to in this act as the Joint Declaration. Bravo, the Internal Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, done at New York, December 19, 1966, and Charlie, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, done at Paris, December 10, 1948. 3. To support the democratic aspirations of the people of Hong Kong, including the, quote, ultimate aim of the, end quote, of the selection of the chief executive and all members of the legislative council by universal suffrage as articulated in the basic law of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China, referred to in this act as the Basic Law. 4. To urge the government of the People's Republic of China to uphold its commitments to Hong Kong, including allowing the people of Hong Kong to govern Hong Kong with a high degree of autonomy and without undue interference, and ensuring that Hong Kong voters freely enjoy the right to elect chief executive and all members of the Hong Kong Legislative Council by universal suffrage. 5. To support the establishment of genuine democratic option to freely and fairly nominate and elect chief executive of Hong Kong, and the establishment by 2020 of open and democratic elections for all members of the Hong Kong Legislative Council. 6. To support the robust exercise by residents of Hong Kong of the rights to free speech and the press and other fundamental freedoms as provided by the Basic Law, the Joint Declaration, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. 7. To support freedom from arbitrary or unlawful arrest, detention, or imprisonment for all Hong Kong residents as provided by the Basic Law, the Joint Declaration, and International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. 8. To draw international attention to any violations by the government of the People's Republic of China of the fundamental rights of the people of Hong Kong as provided by the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and any encroachment upon the autonomy guaranteed to Hong Kong by the Basic Law and the Joint Declaration. 9. To protect the United States citizens and long-term permanent residents living in Hong Kong, as well as people visiting and transiting through Hong Kong. 10. To maintain the economic and cultural ties that provide significant benefits to both the United States and Hong Kong. And 11. To coordinate with allies, including the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, Japan, and the Republic of Korea, to promote democracy and human rights in Hong Kong. You know, for all that the people behind our government have done, it seems like a lot of lip service. I mean, let's face it, right off the bat, this bill just seems like nothing more than a way to, well, not really nothing more, I can't really say that, but it seems like a tool to, well, actually, yeah, I can say nothing more, because they're not doing the same thing for anybody else in the world, like, you know, all the other countries, you know, you still have the Zhejiang going on and all that other stuff, all these protests going on, and people saying, oh, we don't want American influence, but here, or not that they want American influence, they don't want America's, the American-backed coup leaders, you know, like what's going on in Bolivia and Venezuela and just about everywhere else in the world. So, to me, the only reason why this would actually happen is because China is not under the control, it's not a puppet government of the United States. So, of course, help Hong Kong. Section 4, Amendments to the United States Hong Kong Policy Act of 1992. Alpha Report, Title 2, United States Hong Kong Policy Act of 1992 is amended, 1, in Section 201 Bravo by striking such date and place such term appears, and inserting the date of the enactment of the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act of 2019, and by number 2, adding at the end the following would be Section 205, Secretary of State Report regarding the autonomy of Hong Kong. Certification in general is Section 1, subsection 1. In general, except as provided in subsection Bravo, the Secretary of State, on at least an annual basis, in conjunction with the report required under Section 301, shall issue a certification to Congress that Alpha indicates whether Hong Kong continues to warrant treatment under United States law in the same manner as United States law were applied to Hong Kong before July 1st, 1997. Bravo addresses 1. Commercial agreements, 2. Law enforcement cooperation, including extradition requests, 3. Sanctions enforcement, 4. Export controls and any other agreements and forms of exchange involving dual-use critical or other sensitive technologies, 5. Any formal treaties or agreements between the United States and Hong Kong, 6. Other areas of bilateral cooperation that the Secretary determines to be relevant, 7. Decision making within the government of Hong Kong, including executive, legislative, and judicial structures, including 1, freedom of assembly, 2, freedom of speech, 3, freedom of expression, and 4, freedom of press, including the internet and social media. 8, universal suffrage, including the ultimate aim of selection of the chief executive and all members of the legislative council by universal suffrage. 9, judicial independence. 10, police and security functions. 11, education. 12, laws or regulations regarding treason, succession, sedition, subversion against the people's government of the People's Republic of China, or theft of state secrets. 13, laws or regulations regarding foreign political organizations or bodies. 14, laws or regulations regarding political organizations. And 15, other rights enumerated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, done at Paris, December 10th, 1948, and at the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, done at New York, December 19th, 1996. So all those 15 things, and so addresses those 15 things, and Charlie includes 1, an assessment of the degree of any erosions to Hong Kong's autonomy in each category listed in subparagraph Bravo, resulting, that's the things I just listed out, the 15 things, resulting from actions by the government of the People's Republic of China that are inconsistent with its commitments under the Basic Law or the Joint Declaration. 2, an evaluation of the specific impacts to any areas of cooperation between the United States and Hong Kong, resulting in erosions of autonomy in Hong Kong or failures of the government of Hong Kong to fulfill obligations to the United States under international agreements within the categories listed in subparagraph Bravo, again the 15 things. 3, a list of any specific actions taken by the United States government in response to the erosion, to any erosion of autonomy or failures to fulfill obligations to the United States under international agreement identified in this certification in the report required under Section 301. Okay, so that was long section was a general. 2, factor for consideration. In making each certification under paragraph 1, the Secretary of State shall consider the terms, obligations, expectations expressed in the joint declaration with respect to Hong Kong. 3, additional credit certifications. This certification under Section 1 shall be issued annually, but the Secretary may issue additional certifications at any time its Secretary determines if it is warranted by circumstances in Hong Kong. Okay, waiver authority. In general, the Secretary of State may waive the application of subsection alpha, which is everything we just read about that was going to be put in. So that everything I just read about was going to be inserted into the other bill is going to be waived if Alpha, the Secretary determines that such a waiver is in the national security interest of the United States, and Bravo, on or before the date on which the waiver takes effect, the Secretary notifies the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate and the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives of the intent to waive such subsection. 2, partial waiver. Except for the list of actions described in subsection Alpha 1 Charlie 3, which is the sanctions enforcement. No. Sorry, Charlie. That's the list of any specific actions taken by the United States, blah, blah, blah. The Secretary of State may waive relevant parts of the application of subsection Alpha if the President, which is subsection Alpha being a certification, if the President issues an executive order under Section 202 that suspends the application of any particular United States law to Hong Kong. Bravo, visa applicants. Title II, United States Hong Kong Policy Act of 1992 is amended by subsection Alpha, as amended by subsection Alpha, is further amended by adding at the end the following. Okay, so all that before Bravo here I just read, it was the first part of amendments that they were doing. So now they're talking about amendment for visa applications. Section 206, treatment of Hong Kong applicants for visas to study or work in the United States. Alpha, visa eligibility for certain Hong Kong students. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, applications for visas to enter, study, or work in the United States which are submitted by otherwise qualified applicants who resided in Hong Kong in 2014 and later, may not be denied primarily on the basis of the applicant's subjection to politically motivated arrest, detention, or adverse government action. B. Implementation. The Secretary of State shall take such steps as may be necessary to ensure consular officers are aware of the policy described in subsection alpha and receive appropriate training and support to ensure that the policy is carried out so that the affected individuals do not face discrimination or unnecessary delay in processing of their visa applications. And I have to sneeze. Including 1. Providing specialized training for all consular officers posted to the United States Embassy or in Beijing or to any United States consulate in the People's Republic of China, the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, or the Macau Special Administrative Region. 2. Instructing the United States Consulate in Hong Kong to maintain an active list of individuals who are known to have been formally charged, detained, or convicted by the government of Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, or by the government of the People's Republic of China, or intermediaries of such governments based on politically motivated considerations related to their exercise of rights, enumerated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, done at Paris, September 10, 1948, or the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, done at New York, December 19, 1966, or to facilitate the cross-checking of visa applications for Hong Kong residents. And 3. Epstein didn't kill himself. Oh, sorry about that. My glasses were dirty. Is that meme still a thing? I don't know. Okay, so including 3, updating any relevant United States government websites with information on the policy described in subsection A, alpha. Okay, let's see. Charlie, cooperation with like-minded countries. The Secretary of State shall contact appropriate representatives of other democratic countries, particularly those who receive a large number of applicants for student employment visas from Hong Kong. 1. To inform them of the United States policy regarding arrest for participation in nonviolent protests in Hong Kong, and 2. To encourage them to take similar steps to ensure the rights of nonviolent protesters are protected from discrimination due to the actions of the government of Hong Kong and the government of the People's Republic of China. Okay, so that's the end to the amendment on the visas. Section 5, the annual report on violations of the United States export control laws and United Nations sanctions occurring in Hong Kong. Alpha, in general, not later than 180 days after the date of the enactment of this act, and annually thereafter until the date that is 7 years after the date of the enactment of this act. The Secretary of Commerce, in consultation with the Secretary of Treasury and the Secretary of State, shall submit a report to the committees specified in subsection Bravo. That's all the House and Senate committees. That includes 1. An assessment of the nature and extent of violations of the United States export control and sanction laws occurring in Hong Kong. 2. To the extent possible, the identification of alpha, any items that were re-exported from Hong Kong in violations referred to in paragraph 1. So, like, to get around tariffs, one thing that like China's trying to do, or some companies in China, or that deal with China, try to do, is ship them to a country where the import tariffs are not as high from, and try to still make money that way. Bravo, the countries and persons to which the items referred to in subparagraph A were re-exported, and Charlie, how such items were used. 3. An assessment of whether sensitive dual-use items subject to export control laws of the United States are being alpha, transshipped through Hong Kong, and B, Bravo, develop 1. The Sharp Eyes, Skynet, Integrated Joint Operations Platform, or other systems of mass surveillance and predictive policing, or 2. The Social Credit System of the People's Republic of China. China's not the only one that's doing, like, predictive policing, or, well, are they really engaged? Well, I think they are engaged in predictive policing. But I definitely know Israel is, and apparently some cities in Canada, I think now, and yeah, fun stuff. 4. An assessment of the efforts by the government of the People's Republic of China to use the status of Hong Kong as separate customs territory to import items into the People's Republic of China from Hong Kong in violation of the export control laws of the United States, whether as part of the Greater Bay Area Plan, as through the assignment of Beijing of Hong Kong as the National Technology and Innovation Center, or through other programs that may exploit Hong Kong as a conduit for controlled sensitive technology. 5. An assessment of whether the government of Hong Kong has adequately enforced sanctions imposed by the United Nations. Sorry, it might as well be the United States, right? 6. A description of the types of goods or services transshipped or re-exported through Hong Kong in violation of such sanctions to Alpha, North Korea or Iran, or Bravo, other countries, regimes, or persons subject to such sanctions or for engaging in activities 1. Relating to international terrorism, international narcotics trafficking, or the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, or 2. The otherwise present a threat to the national security, foreign policy, or economy of the United States. And what? Yeah, like how they threw North Korea and Iran in here. 7. Assessment of whether shortcomings in the enforcement of export controls or sanctions by the government of Hong Kong necessitates the assignment of additional Department of the Treasury, Department of Commerce, Department of State personnel to the United States Consulate in Hong Kong. Okay, the committee specified. This is subsection Bravo. The committee specified in this subsection are 1. The Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate, 2. The Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs of the Senate, 3. The Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation of the Senate, 4. The Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives, and 5. The Committee on Energy and Commerce of the House of Representatives. And Charlie, the form of the report under subsection Alpha shall be submitted in unclassified form, but may include a classified annex. So, for the most part, it should be public record. Section 6, protecting United States citizens and others from redemption into the People's of Republic of China. Alpha, policy statements. It is a policy of the United States, 1, to safeguard United States citizens from extradition, redemption, or abduction to the People's Republic of China from Hong Kong for trial, detention, or any other purpose. 2, to safeguard United States business in Hong Kong from economic coercion and intellectual property theft. 3, pursuant to section 1037 or 103 subsection 7 of the United States Hong Kong Policy Act of 1992, to encourage United States business to quote, continue and operate in Hong Kong in accordance with applicable United States and Hong Kong law, unquote. And 4, pursuant to section 201 Bravo of such act, to evaluate not less frequently than annually and as circumstances not less frequently than annually and as circumstances, comma, dictate whether the government of Hong Kong, so another typo, that comma doesn't belong there, the government of Hong Kong is quote, legally competent to carry out its obligations, end quote, under treaties and international agreements established between the United States and Hong Kong. So that comma there is kind of problematic because it changes the meaning of the word from evaluate whether they are going on to dictate whether they are going on. So yeah, somebody might want to fix that. I mean, because that's just saying, oh, fucking shit, the sun's out. So evaluate means to look at something and report, and make an assessment. But the dictator says, well, I'm just going to say it's going on there. Holy shit, the sun is bright. Alrighty. Look at my pretty face. Okay. Thank you, Cloud. Okay. Bravo. Response to the threat of retention. Not later than 30 days after the President determines that the legislation proposed or enacted by the government of Hong Kong would put the United States citizens at risk of extradition or retention into the People's Republic of China or to other countries that lack protections for the rights of defendants, the President shall submit a report to the appropriate congressional committees that 1. Contains a strategy for protecting the United States citizens and business in Hong Kong. 2. Assesses the potential risk of legislation to United States citizens residing in, traveling to, or transiting through Hong Kong. And 3. Determine whether Alpha additional resources are needed for American citizen services at the United States Consulate in Hong Kong. And Bravo, the government of Hong Kong is, quote, legally competent, end quote, to administer the United States Hong Kong Agreement for the surrender of fugitive offenders done at Hong Kong December 20th, 1996, or other relevant law enforcement agreements between the United States and Hong Kong. Yeah, I like how in here it talks about the Chinese legal system basically being the Cardassian legal system. I mean, don't they tout they have a 97% conviction rate? I don't know why having a high conviction rate is necessarily a good thing. All it means is that you put more people in jail. It doesn't mean that more people are guilty or that you found more guilty people. So, I mean, this is something that's also cancerous here in America too, right? Oh yeah, prosecutor with a 75% conviction rate. That means all that means is that 75% of the people that person prosecuted got put in jail. It doesn't mean that they were guilty. It doesn't mean that they were innocent either. I think it's time to reassess some of our standards. That's all I'm saying. Section 7. Sanctions relating to undermining fundamental freedoms and autonomy in Hong Kong. Alpha, identification of persons responsible for undermining fundamental freedoms and autonomy in Hong Kong. 1. In general, the President shall submit a report to the appropriate congressional committees in accordance with paragraph 2 that identifies each foreign person that the President determines is responsible for. This is the President having to do this now. Alpha, the extrajudicial retention, arbitrary detention, and torture of any person in Hong Kong. Or Bravo, the other gross violations of internationally recognized human rights in Hong Kong. 2. Timing of reports. The President shall submit to the appropriate congressional committees. Alpha, the report required under paragraph 1. That 1 is not later than 180 days. And paragraph 1, by the way, is the in general part I just read. That is 1, not later than 180 days after the date of the enactment of this act. And 2 is not less frequently than annually thereafter in conjunction with the publication of the report required under Section 301 of the United States Hong Kong Policy Act of 1992. There's 22 U.S.C. 5731 in case you want to look it up. And Bravo, an update to the report not later than 15 days after any new action is taken under subsection Bravo is based on the discovery of new information described in paragraph 1. Okay, so subsection Bravo is what we haven't read yet, and again, paragraph 1 is the in general President writes a report for. 3. Considerization, yes, I like to do some considerization of things. Consideration of certain information. In preparing the report required under paragraph 1, the President shall consider Alpha, information provided jointly by the chairperson and ranking member of each of the appropriate congressional committees, and Bravo, information obtained by other countries or reputable non-governmental organizations that monitor violations of human rights abuses. Some of the quote-unquote reputable human rights organizations are not, I wouldn't really call them reputable. Just saying. 4. Form. The report under paragraph 1 shall be submitted in unclassified form, but may include a classified annex. So once again, let's be transparent. Okay, so Bravo, the imposition of sanctions. The President shall impose the sanctions described in subsection Charlie, which is coming up, with respect to each foreign person identified in the report under subsection 1, Alpha 1. Sanctions, Charlie, sanctions described. The sanctions described in this subsection are the following. 1. Asset blocking. The President shall exercise all the powers granted to the President under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which is 50 U.S.C. 1701, etc., to the extent necessary to block and prohibit all transactions in property and interest in property of a foreign person identified in the report required under subsection Alpha 1, if such property and interests in property are in the United States, come within the United States, or come within the possession or control of a United States person. 2. Ineligibility for visas, admission, or parole. Alpha, visas, admission, or parole. An alien described in subsection Alpha 1 is 1. Inadmissible to the United States. 2. Ineligible to receive a visa or other documentation under the United States. And 3. Otherwise ineligible to be admitted or paroled into the United States or to receive any other benefit under the Immigration and Nationality Act. That's 8 U.S.C. 1101, etc. And the alien as described is the one that the President has to fill the reports out on. Bravo. Current visas remote. 1. In general, an alien described in subsection Alpha 1, the one that the President has to write the report on, is subject to the revocation of any visa or other entry documentation, regardless of when the visa or other entry documentation is or was issued. 2. Immediate effect. Revocation under the clause 1 shall 1. Take effect immediately, and 2. Automatically cancel any other valid visa or entry documentation that is in the alien's possession. Okay. That's the ineligibility for visas, admission, or parole part. 3. Penalties. The penalties provided for in subsections Bravo and Charlie of Section 206 of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, 50 U.S.C. 1705, shall apply to a foreign person that violates, attempts to violate, conspires to violate, or causes a violation of Paragraph 1 to the same extent, the Paragraph 1 being the presidential report, to the same extent that such penalties apply to a person that commits an unlawful act as described in subsection Alpha of subsection 206. And that's, oh no, wait, so that Paragraph 1 is not that, that's looking at the other act, sorry. The implementation, the President may exercise all authorities provided under Sections 203 and 205 of the International Emergency Powers Act, 50 U.S.C. 1702 and 1704 to carry out this section. Echo. Waiver. The President may waive the application of sanctions under this section with respect to a person identified required under subsection Alpha 1, that is the President's report, if the President determines and certifies to the appropriate congressional committees that such a waiver is in the national interest of the United States. Foxtrot exceptions. 1. Exception for intelligence activities. Sanctions under this section shall not apply to any activities subject to the reporting requirements under Title V of the National Security Act of 1947, that's 50 U.S.C. 3091, et sequitur, or any authorized intelligence activities of the United States. So, Chinese Epstein? 2. Exception to comply with international obligations and for law enforcement activities. Sanctions under subsection Charlie 2 shall not apply with respect to an alien if admitting or paroling into the United States is necessary, Alpha, to permit the United States to comply with the agreement regarding the headquarters of the United Nations, signed at Lake Success June 26, 1947, and entered into force November 21, 1947, between the United Nations and the United States, or other applicable international obligations, or Bravo, to carry out or assist law enforcement activity in the United States. Man, there's a lot of reference to other legislation and treaties and whatnot in here. Okay, 3. Exception relating to importation of goods. Alpha, in general, the authorities and requirements to oppose sanctions authorized under this section shall not include the authority or a requirement to impose sanctions on the implementation of goods. Importation of goods. Bravo, good defined in this paragraph. The term good means any article, natural or man-made substance, material, supply, or manufactured product, including inspection and test equipment, and excluding technical data. Okay, so that is all under the exceptions. Now we go to Gulf, determination of sanctions. Oh my god, the sun is so bright. The president may terminate the application of sanctions under this section with respect to a person if the president determines the end reports to the appropriate congressional committees not less than 15 days before the termination takes effect that 1. Information exists that the person did not engage in the activity for which sanctions were imposed. 2. The person has been prosecuted appropriately for the activity for which sanctions were imposed. 3. The person has credibly demonstrated a significant change in behavior, has paid an appropriate consequence for the activity for which the sanctions were imposed, and has credibly committed to not engage in activity described in subsection Alpha 1, which is the thing the president has to report on, in the future. Or 4. The termination of the sanctions is in the interest of the national security interests of the United States. Okay, that's terminations. Hotel sunset. This section and any sanctions imposed under this section shall terminate on the date that is 5 years after the date of the enactment of this act. India definitions. In this section, 1. Admitted alien. The terms admission, admitted, and alien have the meanings given to those terms in section 101 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1101. 2. Foreign person. The term foreign person means a person that is not a United States person. And we are almost done. It's been 36 minutes. Not too horrible. I admit it's kind of like a boring and dry read so far, but I had an interest in reading it because, you know, what's been going on. Section 8, sanctions reports. Alpha, in general, in accordance with Section 7, the President shall submit to the appropriate congressional committees a report that includes 1. A list of each foreign person with respect to which the President imposed sanctions during the year preceding to the submission of the report, or preceding the submission of the report. 2. A description of the type of sanction imposed with respect to each such person. 3. A number of foreign persons with respect to the President with respect to which the President terminated sanctions under Section 7 during the year. 4. The dates on which the sanctions were imposed or terminated as applicable. 5. The reasons for imposing or terminating such sanctions, and need an extra finger. Come on, grow an extra finger. Alright, well, whatever. 6. The description of the efforts of the President to encourage the governments of other countries to impose sanctions that are similar to the sanctions authorized in Section 7. Bravo. Non-applicability of confidentiality requirement with respect to visa records. The President shall publish a report required under subsection Alpha without regard to the requirements of Section 222 Foxtrot of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which is 8 U.S.C. 1202 Foxtrot, with respect to confidentiality of records pertaining to the issuance or refusal of visas or permits to enter the United States. Section 9. Sense of Congress on People's Republic of China's state-controlled media. It is the sense of Congress that 1. The United States condemns the deliberate targeting and harassment of democracy activists, diplomatic personnel of the United States and other nations and their families by media organizations controlled by the government of the People's Republic of China, including Wen Wei Po and Ta Kung Po. Wait, was that guy? That guy that won like the Nobel Prize or something like that, or something, and he disappeared. Or am I thinking of someone else? 2. The Secretary of State should clearly inform the government of the People's Republic of China that the use of media outlets to spread disinformation or to intimidate and threaten its perceived enemies in Hong Kong or in other countries is unacceptable. Yeah, okay, whatever. 3. The Secretary of State should take any activities described in paragraph 1 or 2 into consideration when granting visas for travel and work in the United States to journalists from the People's Republic of China who are affiliated with any such media organizations. Section 10, Sense of Congress on commercial exports of crowd control equipment to Hong Kong. It is a sense of Congress that the Department of Commerce, in conjunction with other relevant federal departments and agencies, to consider the appropriate adjustments to the current United States export controls with respect to Hong Kong to prevent the supply of crowd control and surveillance equipment that could be used inappropriately in Hong Kong. Pretty sure there's much other places that they're getting the surveillance equipment from, but the crowd control equipment, yeah. And that is that. So, okay, decent bill, does what it does. Again, my concerns are, hey, there's all this other shit going on in the world too. Why isn't Congress trying to help those people out either? So, on its face, okay. But looking at the deeper what's going on, it's, yeah, still somewhat horseshit. But anyways, that is the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act of 2019. And I am Charles Kovach, your not safe for work presidential candidate. And if a direct democracy is something that you are more interested in, then please spread the word of this concept or this campaign. And I thank you for your time.